Hello. Hi, everyone. This is Alex the Paz here. We are live, so I'm going to give you guys a little bit to catch up. Um, and we have a very nice show for you today. So excited about it. Can't wait to tell you about it. And so, join us. So, yay! Can you hear me? Make sure, just give me a little thumbs up or something if you can hear me okay. I want to make sure the audio is good. We might have some distraction because I'm kind of outdoors, but that's okay. We'll work with what we got. So, just let me know. I'm waiting for our guest to come on board. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be a very fun-filled show today. Please feel free to join us. This is kind of a part two from last week. Um, Hi, Sue. It's a kind of a part two from last week, an extension, and I'm going to give our guests an opportunity to really um, bring alive what her point, very, very critical stuff about mental health and things that we deal with on a daily basis. So I'm really excited. As soon as she joins, I'm going to invite her and she'll be joining us. But for now, let me just get a few things out the way. Give you guys some time to join. Okay, please do share. Share with everybody you know because this stuff can help someone who's in need at this critical time. We're all dealing with difficult things, and so it's really important that we share this information. But I want to get a few things out the way. Sort of some announcements, and then we'll get going. Let me just remind some folks. Um, so they can join us and slowly come. Oh, there's Melby. Okay. I'm gonna invite Melby now and then we'll go from there. Let's see. Okay. Ampy's watching. Thanks for watching, Ampy. Hey, there you are.
Hey, how are
I'm
you?
good, I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Last time I had a little bit of difficulty with some of the audio on my end, so this time I'm using my AirPods and it's tend to be
Yeah.
better. And I think our audience can hear us as well. So we're just gonna be getting started here. I want to welcome you to the show. We're gonna give people a little while to join, and I'm going to be sharing with some folks. So feel free to share with whoever you want and then we'll take it from there. But it's such a beautiful day today. What's the weather like where you're at?
It's sunny and warm and it's nice outside though. It's not
Yeah,
too hot. I was out
good,
there
good.
earlier, so
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's gonna be a good show today. I'm really, really excited.
me,
Um,
me too. I think
okay.
it's going to be informative
Yes.
and good for both
Abs
of us. Healing.
absolutely. 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 So let me just get started here. I just want to introduce myself for those folks who don't know who I am, as I'm not coming from the platform that I usually do that has my name and my title and all of that. So, and then I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself again, okay? Um, but I'm Alex the Paz, CEO and founder of Globecom and Chimaya Funa. I'm a mental health therapist, psychotherapist, holistic practitioner, and a whole lot more. Um, but this is not about me today. This is about us bringing this information to you. I want to say, first of all, shout out to our patrons, all of you wonderful people who support us and the work we do. And we are so thrilled to tell you all the stuff that's going to be coming this quarter as we go into the end of the year and into 2025. There's lots of great things, but I'm not going to take up too much time talking about those now. We'll get an opportunity to do that. Just wanted to introduce myself to you and invite you to this lovely show today, our podcast, Know Thyself, an Inside Job. This is a continuation from our last show where we had Melby on again, and we were talking about addictions and self-care and all of that. So we will touch on that again some more, go a little bit deeper, and Mel will tell us a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about because I'm going to give her center stage today to really I'll be here to facilitate. So don't get nervous. I'll be here to facilitate, but I really want you to bring this because there's so many people that have reached out to me who need to hear this information. And when it's like we talked about the last time, when you're telling your story, your narrative, it's very impactful, and that's what I want. So I also just want to shout out to all the wonderful people. Please tell us where you are, and throughout the show, I will take some time to shout you out if anybody's celebrating a birthday, anniversary, anything like that. You're all special, and thank you for being a part of our movement. Okay, Mel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Mel B. I am from Houston, Texas. I am a recovering addict. I consider myself living in sobriety for almost 5 years. So I have a rather longer history of sobriety. Um, Today, I think it's important we talk about the family dynamics and how the family is impacted by alcoholism or addiction in general. I think one of the main things that we need to address first is what is the definition of an addiction? And the best one I ever found was the Cleveland Clinic, and it's where they define addiction as a chronic or a lifelong condition that involves the compulsive seeking and taking of substances or the performing of an activity, so a behavior, despite the negative and harmful consequences. And a lot of times we like to focus on that first part of the definition when we think of addiction, but that second part is where families come into it. Because just as the addict themselves are sick, the family becomes sick with them. And it's obviously from a different angle. The addict themselves are either addicted to gambling or a substance or sex or codependency. The family will in turn a lot of times become addicted to the roles that they play in that addict's life. Um, there are usually 6 roles that are defined that people play. Obviously, a lot of times we're talking about families, but you can also be talking about friends. You can be talking about coworkers, acquaintances, significant others, and sometimes people play more than one role. It's not always just, hey, you're the enabler. So the 6 roles typically are the addict, and that's pretty self-explanatory. We have the enabler. That's usually your main person that is the caregiver or the main support for that person. You have the hero. That's a person that's going to usually be your overachiever. They're going to be a perfectionist. They're walking on eggshells because they have to do that around an addict. They don't want to set an addict off. You have a scapegoat. These are the people that sometimes take on the blame for the addiction of the addict. They kind of take on that role. You have the mascot. Those are your people that are going to, bring light to the situation. They might come with humor. And that's just a way that they can kind of escape feeling that pain and that fear that they feel. And then you have what they call the lost child. That's the one, that's a wallflower. You're never going to hear them. They're never going to get noticed. They're not seeking valid, they're just staying out of the way. So you have these roles that we play. And like I said, it's not just families, it's everybody. And what happens is a lot of times when an addict begins their healing process, a lot of times families don't realize that they got to start their healing process. And the problem comes in when a family doesn't seek out that assistance is that a lot of times a family's going from a place of where they're in a chaotic state all the time. They're doing everything for that addict. And now they're getting into a more peaceful state, and that's uncomfortable for them. They've lived chaotically this whole time, and now they're asked to just be calm. And they don't know their role anymore. They get fearful that, hey, the addict's getting better. They're not going to need me anymore. They're going to, I'm going to become invalid in this person's life. And so a lot of times, believe it or not, sometimes families will, or I should say support groups, will actually sabotage an addict because they yearn to keep that identity, because their identity has become enmeshed with that addict's behavior. So they no longer identify as, Mel or Rosie. They identify as, the enabler. So to me, the main thing to take from this is that families and addicts both need, to me, it's important that you seek out professional counseling individually and as a unit so that you can get a better understanding of the new roles that you're going to play and maybe have a better understanding of how it's going to look and to get that self-confidence and to reassert your independence away from the addiction. So that's kind of the synopsis, I think, of how the family plays into the role of addiction and the healing process.
Thank you so much for that description because it was eloquently articulated. From my background of working with addicts and from my personal experience of having addicts in my family, and loved people that I've been in relationships with, it's right on point, and it's really important for our audience to be able to absorb this stuff. And I thank you for expressing it in such way that everyone can understand it. I really appreciate it.
You're
Let me
welcome.
just shout out our folks as we continue. Um, Thanks for watching, Sue. Please let me know where you guys are watching from. Ampy, thanks for watching. Bernadette McLean, thanks for watching. Please feel free to bring your comments, questions, and I will try to answer them, or we'll try to get to them while we continue the dialogue. Miriam, thanks for watching. Marcy, thanks for watching. Michael Lopez, thanks for watching. Theodore, thanks for watching. Luceli, thanks for watching. Please do share this video and this feed today. It's really important, and it's very important that we hear this. Thanks for watching, Raina, and please let us know where you're watching from. Okay, let's continue our show. We are talking, for those of you who just joined us, we are talking about addiction and the consequences that it has not only on the individual identified patient, as we speak of in psychology, but the family system at large. And my guest today is bringing insight and awareness and information and resources from personal experience. So thank you for joining us. Okay, we can continue.
Okay, so like I said, it's very important that each component, number one, figure out who they are outside of the addiction, whether, and that's whether they need to go to therapy. I would suggest therapy, but it's up to you. I understand different cultures and different, lifestyles. Another valuable resource is to seek out groups of like people. I'm not a supporter or non-supporter of AA, but AA has a component of Al-Anon. If you can get to that where you can hear like stories and you can hear their stories and how they coped and how they have improved figured out ways to improve their life, their quality of life. Another thing is if you have a person that goes to rehab, when they have those family days where they invite you to come and get some education, that is valuable. And a reputable rehab will have that because they understand it is a family disease. It is a lifelong disease. It's not going to just go away. And it takes a whole village sometimes to help that individual that is the one who is identified as the addict, and also to help the family. A lot of times this is generational. It's not normally just, you're the first generation. It's usually 3 or 4 generations of learned behaviors. And so we have to learn how to, pretty much rewire our neural pathways so that we think differently, because everything is based on reward. So just as the addict gets rewarded with dopamine rushes from doing whatever substance or behavior, the family gets rewarded by, let's say, the enabler. They feel good because they've helped this addict stay alive this long. They get that same kind of feeling of importance. And so we have to learn to get that same satisfaction, but from something positive. So we try to, that's why it's important that you find those positive outlets, because addiction is either going to be replaced by another addiction or it's going to be replaced by something positive. So like I said, you want to try to do the more positive approach. And it takes time. It's hard. I do believe that just as an addict's brain quits developing at the point where they become the addict, So if I become an addict at 13 or I start using heavy at 13 and I'm 26, I'm still back at a 13-year-old kind of mentality. I believe the family does the same thing. And so there's a lot of growth that has to take place. There's a lot of grace and compassion that has to come into it. We have to change the way we view each other. Um, we're all sick. And so we have to, get well together too. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Let me check, but I want to add to what you're saying. And when we come to the end of this show, I have a list of 5 things that I want to leave our audience with that they can do that has a direct connection to what we're talking about that can help them manage. I don't want to say control because I don't like to use that
Yeah.
word, but mostly manage these shadow parts of themselves that they deal with on a daily
Hmm.
basis. So we will take time to do that at the very end. But let me see if anybody's asking any questions or any comment. Are you able to see on your end?
I don't think so.
Okay, I can see. Let's see. So far, it looks like we just have folks listening. It's a heavy topic. Um,
mhm.
and so a lot of I just want to say a lot of people do get uncomfortable with it, but be aware that you have some expert here. So we are going to be very gentle. So, and it's a safe space. So
Right.
feel free to share. It's always safe on this podcast and it's very respectful. And so, again, sometimes when you get an opportunity to share what you're feeling, it makes that experience much lighter. So please don't hesitate.
And, and another thing is I can kind of share my viewpoint or my story from what my family did for me to help me grow and to enter a life of sobriety. So I was
Yes,
in,
go.
oh,
Let
okay.
me interrupt. I just want to interrupt real quick. I'm going to let you go ahead and do that. I'm going to grab some water and I'll be back.
Okay.
But just go ahead and do that, okay?
Okay. All right. So I was in heavy addiction to alcohol for 3 years. I spent about the same amount of time trying to get sober. Um, so during my sobriety or my attempts at sobriety, I went to 6 different rehab stays, and every time I came home from a rehab stay, I relapsed on the airplane. So the last time that I flew back home, my wife told me, "Look, you know." Here is a food pantry, a soup kitchen, and here is a homeless shelter. So if you come back drunk, you are not coming back to our house. And, at the time, I was already drunk when she told me this. So at the time, I didn't understand the value of that. I thought, well, I'm paying the bills. I should be able to come to my house. I didn't tell her that, but I thought that in my head. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm coming back and I'm coming back to Kansas City, Missouri. I have nowhere to stay. So I beg her to see if her parents would let me stay with them if I promised to go back to another rehab. So this was in between the fifth and the sixth rehab stay. And so they agreed. But the conditions of my stay was that number one, I had to abstain. And number two, anywhere they went, I had to go with them. That meant outside in the heat. If they were cutting the grass, guess where I was? Outside with them. I never spent a moment alone in that house. And I wasn't allowed to go to certain places in that house. Um, and so to me, that was the start of me being held accountable for my choices. Yes, I have a disease, but I also have some culpability in the manifestation of that disease. So that was the first true dose of accountability I got. And so I went back to rehab. Um, I came out of rehab and I had one more relapse after that. I didn't go home though from that rehab. I decided that for me, my family didn't deserve to go through that anymore, and I wasn't sure I was ever going to get sober. And so I removed myself, and I went to Texas, and that's how I ended up in Texas. And that's how that last relapse spurred my journey into sobriety. And that's kind of how I got on my journey. And now I thank, I thank my ex-wife for doing what she did, because she saved my life. She was, and she is, what she put up with, no one should have to put up with. She didn't ask for that, and she just took it upon herself. And she took it upon herself. She came to that um, family. It was like a family week in California. She came there to Orange County, and she did that. And then after that, she has been on the healing path ever since. And that's been a few years now. So healing is a never ending process. You will be healing for the rest of your life. You will get to a point where I think you're more in a maintenance and you're fixing little things, but you're going to be healing for the rest of your life. So there are no such things as a healed person. There's just a more healed person. And
Absolutely.
so I want to shout out to those families that, do everything they can to help the addict. And sometimes, we don't realize that maybe we're more enabling than we are helping. But sometimes we have to give that hard love, that tough love to that addict, because addicts very seldom, I shouldn't say very seldom, but a lot of times we don't feel the repercussions of our addiction as much as a family does. And so sometimes we got to feel that pain, and we got to feel that, that uncomfortableness, so that we can say, hey, I don't want to be uncomfortable anymore. How can I how can I make my life better?
Yes,
So
yes.
shout out to those families.
Thank you for doing that. Absolutely. So someone made a comment. Let's see. Reina Vidal. I have people in my family. Oops, give me 1 second here. Who are addicts, and nobody really talks about it. It has separated us in groups, and there's more. Hang on. It has separated us in groups, and I feel very much um, haunted about it. Some just criticize instead of trying to unite and help each other, not economically, but with time, love, and understanding. Absolutely true. Very, very true. It's because there's so much stigma around addiction and around this issue that people don't know how to be. That is why we're bringing the show, and hope we can help educate folks. Thanks for watching, Shirley. Sue said, I can see someone who is recovering would need a distraction to manage the urges. Hang on. To manage the urges that rears its head later. I'm thinking visual uh, distractions as well as physical. What do you think? So hold that thought, Melby, because we'll have you answer that. Yes. Oh, she meant uh, Reina Vidal said she felt hurt. Hurt. That was the word. It's very difficult to see because I'm actually shooting this from a smaller area, so bear with
Okay.
me, folks. But anyway, let's address that issue. Do you want me to repeat it, or did you
The
you
one
you
about the needing the
yes,
visual
yes.
distractions.
Okay.
I think it's the most important thing is for the addict themselves to find something that they find joy in, because you got to remember the addiction brings them a sense of um, sometimes it brings them a sense of empowerment over feelings that they can't handle themselves,
Hmm.
or it allows them to be numb. So I think finding something that is constructive for an addict to do in place of that. I rode my bike a lot. I'm a road biker, and so I did that a lot during that time. I also did a lot of self-healing things like journaling. I believe that we don't really need to distract ourselves per se from why we're addicts. We need to actually deal with why we're addicts. And so once you are okay with looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, hey, I'm an addict, these are the things I need to work on. I feel like I have low self-esteem. I don't feel adequate. I feel I am a burden. We have to deal with those feelings. And also, believe it or not, admitting things to yourself and to others actually takes the power away from those things. So if I admit that I'm an addict, and my friend base and my family base know that I'm an addict, you can't really, it's hard to shame me because I have readily admitted those things. So, yes, people have physical cravings. I always tell people have an escape route. Always. If you're going to a family function and you know they're going to be drinking, you have two choices. You can either not go or you can go and maybe have an escape route. If you have to ride with someone, say, hey, if I feel uncomfortable, I'm going to tell you a code word. If we can just, leave for a
Mm,
moment or take your own transportation. I used to just take my own transportation. Um, I was lucky in my addiction. I didn't really have visual or smell
mhm,
uh, uh, cravings. I think mine was more psychological than it
mm,
was a physical because I can be around it and not drink. And
mhm,
so, but a lot of people can't. And so that's why I want to always say that, everybody is different. I think it's important to, um, even after you go to rehab, do some intensive outpatient therapy. Um, do, you just have to replace, your brain is going to start rewiring itself where it's not going to be looking for the drugs to give it that high. It's going to start rewiring itself to look for other things. And if you replace it with positive things, then it's going to get that same high. It doesn't care how it gets the high. It likes rewards. So, I consider every day that I wake up not in an active addiction to be a win for me. So that's a reward. I start out every day as 1 and 0. And so I think the important thing is to not try to hide from your addiction. You got to face it straight on. And sometimes that's cravings. And you got to know that, hey, I make it through this craving. Hey, I won. I won that day. You got to live in the moment. And, we live in a world that is, especially with alcohol, is inundated with alcohol. People expect you to drink at parties. So I kind of immerse myself in, not in alcohol, but I immerse myself in living life. And that means if I go to a restaurant, guess what they're going to have there? Alcohol. So I just said, you know what? I can still have a good time with that alcohol sitting there. And I just finally my brain got reconditioned to where I can be around it and I'm not going to drink. It's almost automatic for me now, but I always keep it in the back of my head that hey, I'm one choice away from going right back where I was. So I think that's an important thing to just always remember. Don't chastise the addict because believe it or not, the addict feels horrible about what they are. It's not that they don't care about their families. It's not that they don't care about what people think about them. They care deeply. It's just that addiction is like a bad relationship. It's like a toxic codependency relationship, and that's their lover. And everything to them, they have to satisfy that addiction. And that becomes their number one priority, unfortunately. But addicts, myself included, we care deeply. Sometimes we care too deeply, and that's how we get into these situations. So, just if you can just be a positive force in that person's life. So when they do have wins, hey, tell them, hey, I'm so proud of you. You didn't drink today. And when they do stumble, don't think of it as a failure. They're just speed bumps. We can still go over it and keep on climbing, so be there to listen to them, be there to be a support. Um, and you be real with them. Say, hey, this hurt me. That's okay. But just don't, it does no good to really chastise them, an addict or anything like that. It usually ends up having the opposite effect. But hold them accountable. You have to set clear boundaries with addicts, and you have to stand on those boundaries. That's the most important part. That's what I thank my ex-wife about. She stood on her boundaries. As hard as it was, she stood on them, and that's probably the best thing you can do. But those cravings are, people are going to have cravings, and they have to just know that each time they can get past it. It's a temporary craving. It only lasts a little bit. So, you know, um, but I think that's about all I have.
yeah, thank you, no, for answering that question. That was I think that was right on. I think a lot of times too, we talk about the enabler, and people who are, they don't like to be labeled the enabler. They feel like they're just being there unconditionally. But when it comes to addiction, it's a whole other ballgame. And
Mhm.
so, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, we have in every family dynamic, there's an enabler there, and it doesn't have anything to do with addiction. We just have people. A lot of times, the enabler is the one that's out of sight, out of mind kind of person. If they don't talk about it, then it's not happening. They're the ones that are going to deny it because they feel shame around it. So I think I think one of the main things to do if you find yourself being the enabler is you have to take that shame and that fear and turn it into something positive. You have to realize that um, that's their addiction, and you it's a disease, so you have nothing to be ashamed of. Addiction is shame, fear, and secrecy. So the more we talk about it, the more we educate ourselves on it, the better we are in our mind able to cope with it in a positive way. So, if you find that you're an enabler, just try to, even if you change up something 1% change a day adds up to 100% fairly quickly. Just a little change. Hey, if you're used to giving that person $20, this time don't give them $20. Say no. And you'll find that as you're able to say no and to set those boundaries and stand on those boundaries, it gets way easier to change your behavior.
Right.
It doesn't
I think I
feel as hard, bad.
I think consistency when you're setting any kind of boundary is
Mm-hmm.
extremely important. Whether you're doing that in any scenario, like consistency along with boundaries will help you get from point A to point B, and you don't need to feel guilt. Um,
Right.
I think a lot of times people who are supporting the addict feel that, like you mentioned earlier, or in our last show, that they're walking around eggshells and they feel like they don't want to do anything wrong because they don't want to trigger the addict. They're that takes a lot of energy to
Yes.
always, especially in a intimate relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? Takes a lot of energy. You never know what mood the person is going to be in because they need that fix, that drink, and you want to like placate them to a certain degree, but at the same time, you're scared to upset them, and at the same time, you want to have be there for them. It's very complex and complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would like to ask you, what do you think was the pivotal moment? I think you may have mentioned it, but if there's something else that you had that awakening that made you realize I better clean my act up, because it has to be an individual
Oh
choice.
yeah.
It has to be an individual choice. So my question to you is, what was that pivotal moment in your life when you felt like it's I got to do this?
Um, I believe that it was number one having those boundaries set by my ex, but it was a compound. Um, I lost everything in recovery when I was trying to recover. I didn't really lose anything in my active addiction. It was in the recovery process that I started losing everything. I lost a very well paying job. I lost, I had to separate myself from my family. I had tried to kill myself 3 times and that didn't work. So to me, I had gotten down to the point to where either I was going to be an addict and die, or I was going to choose to start living life. So it really came down to a life or death situation. So I think the bottom is different for everybody, and there are a lot of false bottoms because we
Right.
think, oh, if I lose a job, that's going to be the worst thing. Not in an addict's mind. You think it is, but then you lose that job, and you're like, oh well, and then you keep doing the behavior. I just think, we have to realize that there's different bottoms, and what's the bottom for one is not the bottom for another. And unfortunately, sometimes the bottom, they don't reach the bottom until it's too late. And like you said, no family can get an addict. You cannot love an addict straight. There's no such thing. An addict has to love themselves straight. And that's
Absolutely.
totally an inside job. And, I can say for the most part, I kind of did it in solidarity, in solitude, only because I had lost all my friends. I had lost everybody. And so I didn't, that was a choice on my part. It wasn't because I couldn't have support. I had support, but I kept it at arm's length. And I think that might have been my best choice because I needed to feel all those emotions that I
Yeah,
had been denying myself this
right.
whole time.
And it could have been that perhaps you weren't ready. Everybody has to be ready.
Hmm.
That's what it's divine timing. And you could hit rock bottom 5 times. That might not be the real rock bottom.
Yeah.
But when you hit the rock bottom that's supposed to be your rock bottom and you're ready, then things start to change. Let me just answer my nephew. He just gave me a compliment. Thanks. He likes my haircut. Okay. Thank you, Alex. So sweet. Thanks for watching. Let me just shout people out real quick. I think this is such a deep topic that some folks are holding back, but that's
Yeah.
okay. That they'll come and we'll keep doing these shows, and they can look at the reruns and the ones that we've done
Right.
before. We'll keep doing them because I feel like it needs people need to hear this stuff. They really do. Thanks for watching, Sue. Thanks for watching, Ampy. Thanks for watching, Bernadette. Thanks for watching. Bernadette, please make your comments here. We really would appreciate it. Miriam, Mariani, thanks for watching. Marcy, Michael, Theodore, Lucely, Reina, Juicy Lucy, Danny. Hi, Dan. That's my other nephew. Vanny, thanks for watching. Reina, thanks for watching. Addie, Shirley, thanks for watching. Want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Amormio, thanks for watching. Irasema, thanks for watching. Alex, thanks for watching. Anjali Alvaro, thanks for watching. Yes, please, if you have anyone who's dealing with addiction, which is pretty broad because what's the percentage? It's huge.
It's
So
huge.
that's kind of a interesting question. But and you want to share your comments, your response, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your humor, whatever, we are here to engage with you in this dialogue of a topic that is so significant to so many of us, and sometimes we don't realize how serious addiction is. And today we're talking specifically about like substance abuse addiction, right? But there's a whole level of addiction that I've worked in the field with, and we will do different shows on those as well. But addiction is brutal. It is a beast, and if you don't have the support around you, it can be detrimental. And I see that in my job, in my career for years and years. I see that. I've had close friends who committed suicide, and I've seen it firsthand. So I know yeah, it's huge in my family as well. So yeah, it's very personal to me, and so I wanted to bring this so people can get information, get some coping tools, some coping skills, and that is what we do here at Globecom and Chimayafuna, is to educate you and bring this stuff to you for those of you who don't have access to it. So thank you for joining us. Okay, let's see. Um, okay, so yeah, what's the next area we were talking about? So you already went over some very significant points of the family dynamics, the family system at play, the different roles they play, and we talked about pivotal moment in which an addict can start shifting, but it is different for everyone. What
Correct.
is the other information you'd like to share about this, if you have something else that you'd like to add
I
to
think
the things that we're talking
I
about?
think it's important for the families not to take on the responsibility of the addiction from the addict. A lot of times families like to take on that weight. Hey, I'll help them carry the load. It is a disease. It's a recognized disease by the American Medical Association. Um, and yes, it's a disease. It's a disease of thinking, is what I like. Our decision making is broken. So I think it's important for families to know that no matter what they could have done, you can have the best family in the world, that's the most supportive family in the world. But if it is, you know, if you are an addict, it wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. I've seen, and like you were saying earlier, addiction looks very different in very different, people. You have doctors, I was in there with doctors and lawyers and even clergy people. And I even had a guy that was in there that was 73 and never drank alcohol a day in his life until he was 72. I had a Catholic priest
Wow.
that went into
Wow.
retirement. And, a lot of their reasons why, like the 73-year-old, he got bored. He got bored because he had been busy his whole life. Didn't really have any like necessarily emotional issues. He got bored and he just started drinking, and then he liked it. He had obviously had the propensity, and here he is sitting at 73 in
Wow.
rehab.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I worked as a therapist in a very well-known rehab place here in California in
Hmm.
Malibu. Um, I can't disclose anything, obviously,
Right.
because it's confidential, but I got to see firsthand people that you would think they have the world at their hands, right? They seem happy, they're successful, they have a lovely family, good marriage, but that was all a facade. When I get
Right.
to know them, I saw that that was all a facade. So this disease does not, you're not exempt from it because you have
No.
money or because you're white or because you're smart.
Mm-mm.
No. And it goes so deep, like you were saying, it's multi-generational. And sometimes we have to stop it. I know people who know that their mom or dad was alcoholic and they made a choice not to drink at all because of that fear. And that was a conscious decision that they made,
Hmm.
knowing that they did not want to do that or pass it on to their kids. And so, but it goes very, very deep, multi-generational. Um,
And, and I did that exact same thing for a long time. Well into my till I became an addict. Actually, I consciously knew my parents were, alcoholics, dysfunctional, and I had rules. I literally maybe drank 3 times before I became an active addict, and I would only drink two, and I would stop, and it was no problem. But we never know what happens in our lives to get us to a point to where addiction can sneak in, because it's very sneaky. I didn't start out drinking a handle of alcohol a day. I started out, I just took, I think I took 2 shots and liked the way it made me feel. And it made me
mm,
feel energized. It
mhm.
didn't make me sleepy. And I felt like I was superwoman. So, we don't know what these people's lives are. And and yeah, you can have all the money in the world and still be an addict.
Right,
Because under that
right,
money, there are problems,
absolutely,
unresolved issues.
right.
And that was my
Traumas,
problem.
lots,
Traumas, yeah.
lots, lots of traumas. Usually, that's like a huge factor. But it's interesting because I've never heard of all my years, and it's been many in the psychological field and working with addicts and all the many different mental health. I am fascinated by the story you shared about the 72-year-old who became an addict just simply by being bored after retirement. And I think it's interesting because I always think about folks after they retire. I have this philosophy about retirement, and I personally will never retire. I may stop working, like officially from some job, but I will always be working for myself, doing things. I'm not the type to, if I don't even believe in retirement, honestly. I have a whole
Right.
different idea of what that is for me. But it's interesting because the pattern that I've seen is that so many people right after they retire, just like that man, they feel worthless, hopeless. What is my purpose anymore? What am I living for? Wait, like it's an abrupt, you like come to an abrupt stop in your life and you're just like, "Whoa. What am I supposed to do now? Where's the handbook?"
And if
And
you,
so,
right. And if you think about it, even that 72-year-old man, if you were to look at his work life, he was probably a workaholic. So his life was intertwined with his career. So you
and
took a
his identity,
whole,
it was his
yeah,
identity.
like, so you took all that away from him and told him to go sit over here with his feet propped up.
Right,
I
right.
mean, I was a workaholic and I still had to catch myself, but I
Hmm.
was a workaholic. So I was an addict in another form. long before I became what people like to call
Right.
an addict.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's why I say people got to be careful. You
Well,
know,
no. Well, what's interesting is that the word addiction is, like I was saying earlier, it's so broad. There's many of us who have addiction,
yeah,
shopping addiction, sexual addiction, alcohol, drugs, porn, you name it. It's like
codependency is an addiction.
codependency. Yeah, there's the, and we will talk about all of those because it excites me. I love bringing this information that I've studied for so long and share it with our audience. But and what you said earlier too is like most of the time, and I've seen this in my practice, when someone gives up an addiction, let's say it's drug addiction or substance abuse, they can't just give it up and just be good and fine and functioning and all that. There has to be something to replace that. So let's say they give up alcohol, they will drink a pot of coffee 10 times a day. So then it becomes a caffeine addiction, right?
Right.
Or they start taking simple things like ibuprofen or Advil, not seeing the connection, then
Yeah.
it becomes a pill addiction. Or they start getting obsessed with I mean, of course there's healthy addiction. Like for me, I'm addicted to working out. I'm addicted to the gym. I get grumpy. I have withdrawals if I'm not doing if being active, and I've done this my entire life. But to me, that's more of a constructive thing. Of
Mhm.
course, it can go
Oh yeah.
just like with anything. You've seen people who are so addicted to it to the point where they're very unhealthy. So I try to find that balance, and I do it through meditation and mindfulness and journaling and gratitude. So if I didn't have that piece, I could go the other way as
Almost
well. So
definitely.
addiction is, it's broad. And so, but the ones that stand out that people see is when you're walking down the street and you see these homeless guys, and
Hmm.
or you see somebody who gets fired from work because they got a DUI or stuff like that, those are the ones that are prevalent. They're right in your face. But there's so many that's unseen and unspoken of. And so it doesn't mean that one is better than the
No.
other. They're all within addiction. Just like I was saying, trauma is trauma, addiction is addiction. It cannot be measured in my mind. It's, you
Right.
can't say,
This
oh,
is spectrum.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I was just a functioning alcoholic. But
Hmm.
at the end, I was still functioning, but I was not functioning at my full capacity. But yeah, it's just different function levels. Some of
So
us.
at
Mhm.
the end, okay, you were a functioning alcoholic, which there's lots of them out there, right?
Yes.
But what happens when it starts to impair your function?
Yeah, that's when when I started feeling that I was totally out of control. Um, and the reason I felt that way is because I never had to drink in the morning. And I took a drink in the morning because I was sweating. And so I told the guy that picked me up from the airport one day. He picked me up every day. I probably spent more time with this guy than I did my family. And he picked me up and I said, look, I'm going to rehab. I'm going to get you to take me to rehab. I didn't even go home
Wow.
because I knew if I went home, guess what I was going to do? I was not going to go to rehab. So I just took that, but it was like I felt finally totally out of control. I felt like my world was about to collapse and I was not willing to I didn't want to pay that price. But in the end I ended up paying that price anyway. But it also, as you heal, you begin to see negative parts of your life in a much different perspective.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I would have preferred not to go through my addiction, but I felt like a new person was born out of that addiction. I'm like a
Abs-
tree in a forest fire field. All the trees got burned down, but this whole brand new life came about. And so that was like now I look at it as a vital part of my growth. But it takes a while to get there, and it takes some healing to be able to step back and look at any negative situation and
Mhm.
find a glimmer of brightness in it. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but if you're going to go through it, eventually you're going to see it a lot differently if you
Right.
really take the time to heal.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's beautifully said. And I think as we getting down to the end of the hour here, I am thinking of, for me, when I think about addiction and people who struggle and strive with it, and I know that it stems from a variety of things, but trauma being a very big part of one of those
Hmm.
things. And for me, I think that it's really important to have self love, and that's where the healing begins. And
Yeah.
because you bring in all of those old feelings from trauma or whatever it, even if we use the example of the 72-year-old man, he starts having low self-esteem, he starts
Right.
feeling like, whoa, I don't belong, I'm disregarded in society now, I'm,
Right.
dealing with ageism and a whole array of things. So for me, it always goes back to the self. That's why I thrive on preaching and sharing this information about self love. So, with that, um, I have some information that I want to share just briefly about things that people could do to start. And I think we mentioned some in the last on the last show about self love, some simple things that can be done, but five things specifically that are significant and important for people to hear when it comes to start to have self-care and self-love. Five things. The first one is, and we talked about this a little bit, is starting to set boundaries. Boundaries are really, really important. The other one is forgive yourself. Really important to forgive yourself. Prioritize self-care. You always hear people say, "Yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna go get a massage." A month, 2, 3 months go by, and they forget, or they just didn't make the time because something else took priority over that.
And I think
The
it's
third,
important. Oh, sorry.
no,
I
no, no,
think
go ahead.
I think it's important when you're prioritizing or trying to change a habit or trying to develop a habit is that you set a set time and interval and you put that in your calendar because you're more likely
Right,
to do something if you have a set time each and every
right.
day.
And even
Um,
set an alarm if you have to.
right.
These are simple little coping tools and steps. The other one, aside from prioritizing self care, is, and you talked about this in the last show, I think, is practice gratitude.
Hmm.
I wake up every day and I have rituals that I do. I will not start my day without specific things that I do because I try to live in the moment. And the very last thing I would like to suggest is speak kindly to yourself. So many people don't realize that your body hears you. The cells are awakened, they hear messages. You start being negative and telling yourself all these negative self talk, it will respond that way. It's like the law of attraction. You
Right.
say you don't want this, whatever you put out there, you get back a
Right.
hundredfold. So, along the lines of setting boundaries, what is real significant to do, and I just want to make sure we're not missing anybody if they're asking questions. Um, Definitely do not want to neglect our folks. Okay, so far we good. We good. We good. Okay, so those are the five things I mentioned. And then when it comes to setting boundaries, it's important. What's important to know in that area is to know your limits, right? So many people have a hard time with saying no. I tell my clients at work, once you say it the first time, trust me, it gets easy. And that comes from experience because I was
Yes.
one of those people who, like, I was always the giver, always giving, just like put everybody first before me. And then I realized I'm so depleted, I'm so deficient. Wait, come on, I love myself, I can't be. And so I started saying no. The first few times it was difficult, I felt a little bad, and then the badness of what I was feeling within myself for saying no started to mitigate. It started becoming lesser and lesser, and now I got this down. So that's really important when it comes to setting boundaries. The next one that I talked about was about forgiving yourself, right? Forgive, and you touched on this indirectly, but it's about forgive yourself for past mistakes because or misjudgments, because those are lessons for you to learn from. And if you can't forgive yourself and you hold on to that, then it's doing an injustice to you. So that's really, really important. And then a little bit about in Chinese medicine, in traditional Chinese medicine, when you don't forgive yourself and you have all this resentment and anger, it manifests in illness. And this is
Hmm.
known. Studies has shown that. The other one we talked about was about prioritizing, right?
Hmm.
Prioritize self care. How do we do this? We take care of our mind, body, and spirit. And I talked about that briefly in the last show. And it's more than just pampering ourselves. Sometimes
Right.
we're just like, it's much more than that. It's really deliberately taking the time to sit down and say, you know what? I love me. I'm so proud of me. I love who I am. And I deserve this. I deserve a massage. I deserve a pedicure. I deserve a nice haircut, whatever it is, and not feel guilty about what you spend on you. If
Hmm.
you are dating you, wouldn't you want to take you to the five-star restaurant, go to the best hotels, go to the best functioning?
Yeah.
You would be trying to you were trying to impress you, right?
Right.
That's the example. So that's how I live my life. That's how I live my life. And I am saying that when you prioritize self-care, everything starts to shift. You start to invite new people in your life that are vibrating at that same frequency with you, and you find that you have your soul tribe and you can do wonders. You don't need to worry about what this one is saying about you or what that one is saying about you,
Nope.
because you love you and you don't need approval from anyone else.
Nope.
And the last piece out of the five was to practice gratitude. And you mentioned how you do it, journaling and other ways. And then I'll give you an opportunity, um, after I finish talking about this, to share what you see along these lines of what I'm talking about when it comes to self care. The very last one, practicing gratitude, it can be physical or psychological, and what this does is it helps you to sleep better, to take care of yourself. I do every morning when I wake up, I name 10 things I'm grateful for. And then I think of three people who got under my skin, either bothered me, annoyed me. I may not know them. I may have passed them on the street and they did something that affected me, or somebody who is having some feelings towards me for whatever reason, but it bothers me. So I think of those three, I pick three people and
Hmm.
I send them love, sincere, deep love from my heart, because they are an extension of me, right? We all
Right.
breathe the same recycle air. So I do that. And then I take 5 or 10 minutes and I sit in silence. I don't let the clatter comes the clutter in my head, in my mind. I when these thoughts start coming, I stop them and I just be in the moment for 10 minutes. And then the last thing I do is I ask my spirit guides, energy, life, universal force, celestial beings, whatever it is that I believe in, which is a lot, to guide me through this day. And I do
Yeah.
that every day. And that's the way that I can live in the now, the power of now, because that's where the magic is. If I'm stuck in the past or I'm too ahead in the future, I'm screwed, because then I'll be, where am I going to be?
Right.
Confused. So I just wanted to share those five things and then share a little bit about how I spend my day, and hope that it will inspire and motivate people and give them a little bit of a coping tools, skills that they could apply and implement in their daily lives and have a fulfilling life. Life is so beautiful. We don't have to choose to be unhappy. And I say choose because it's a choice from an individual perspective, but you have to work on the inner parts of you. You really have to know who you are, what your triggers are, what you want, what you don't want, and take it from there. So,
Right.
with that, I'm going to give you an opportunity to share a little bit of some self care. What you said was so beautiful, and I really appreciate it,
Well,
because
thank
I
you.
know a lot of people will be watching this later and will be affected one way or the other. That's why we do this.
You know,
So,
I do a lot of what you do. Number one, I wake up and I write 10 gratitudes. Um, I also journal. Um, I, you know, I journal throughout the day too. You
mhm,
know, my journal always starts out with today is a great day. And
good. I love that.
I am happy, healthy, and sober. And those are the first two lines. I think it's important when you're talking about forgiveness that you forgive others. You have to have grace with everybody.
Absolutely.
Forgiveness does not mean acceptance.
Hmm.
Forgiveness does not mean you have to have that person back in your life. It
Hmm.
just means that you're allowing them to hold the weight of their own decisions, and you're saying, I'm not going to carry that in my heart. I think another important thing to remember is when you list. I had a therapist one time ask me, name 5 people, important people in your life, and I named off these 5 people, and she said, you want to know the number one flaw in your list? And I was like, uh-oh. And she's like, you didn't list yourself.
There you go. There you
And
go.
so ever since then, when I do my gratitude list, I always make it a point to put me on there,
Good.
because,
Good.
we are important. No matter what our stage of life is, no matter where we are socioeconomically, we have to be our number one advocate and our number one cheerleader, because at the end of the day, we are the only people that are with us till the very end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why not,
Absolutely.
we should be grateful, but I think it's
Yeah.
just important to love your shadow side, and
Right.
to acknowledge your shadow side.
Right. Right.
And self-care is not just about feeling good. It's
Right.
about being willing to sit in some funk that you might have created yourself.
Exactly.
Maybe some stuff that was handed down to you.
Hmm.
You got to be willing to sit in that and acknowledge that feelings are good. There are
Right.
no bad
Right.
feelings. It's
Right.
how we express those feelings that make the difference. So, you
I
know,
like that. I like that you said that. I like that
mhm.
you said that because that's something that a lot of times, people who are healing and ascending and in this new earth shift, as we talk about, and
Yes,
everything, we're always about love and light. And yes, we are about that, but we must be reminded that the darkness is okay too. I love being in my dark side because that's where I learn my best lesson. When I go to the dark sides of me, which we all have light and dark, that's where I find the magic, the skills, and I bring it to the light. But you have to embrace it and not feel
right,
that it's just one way. The world is polarity. There's duality, everything,
right.
opposite. So thank you for reminding me of that. Go ahead.
And then, like you're saying, most growth is done out of discomfort. Most people make their most growth out of very discomfortable situations. I mean, yeah, as you start healing, you start growing, incrementally, just because you understand that's a good thing to heal. But your main big jumps are out of places of discomfort, because we don't want to be discomfortable. So you have to embrace those times, because if you didn't have those discomfortable times, you probably would have still been stuck in that same like plateau where you've been living, for 40 years or whatever your case might be.
Right,
So,
right.
if it wasn't for those discomfortable times, you wouldn't be you. And so,
Exactly.
embrace those. Those are, yeah, they might have been traumatic, but they can have positive outcomes. So,
Exactly. And
just,
yeah, and all of those experiences, they do occur to teach us something.
mhm,
And so we're always learning from each other as well. We're learning from each other. We're teaching, we're the student, we're the masters. And the last thing I'd like to say, which is very important to me, is always remain humble.
mhm.
Our ego will always be fighting to push its ugly head out because it happens to all of us,
Yes.
but being self-aware to keep it in check. And I usually do that by balancing my ego with my intuition.
Mhm.
When I do that, I'm okay. But we're all egotistical beings to some degree. And
Right.
so as we grow on our spiritual path, we learn that we need to keep the ego where it belongs and practice humility, and it will take us very far in
I
life.
agree.
So that's the last thing I wanted to say. And again, it was a very wonderful conversation. I
Thank you.
thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this very personal part of you. And I know that we had a quiet audience today,
Hmm.
but I was not surprised. I expected that, and
Okay.
that's okay. And as we continue to do these shows, and pick a different topic along under the umbrella of addiction, people will start to feel more comfortable
Right.
coming, and they may very well see the show later on and comment,
Right.
so we can both go there and respond to those comments.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that they have to right now. I meet people where they are.
Right.
But this is a wonderful show, a wonderful podcast, a wonderful movement to bring people to light and help lighten things and help them to enjoy life a little bit more. And so these are just facts of life. Addiction,
Right.
facts of life, and we need to learn how to cope with it, how to deal with it, and that's what we provide here. Anything else you want to add in? Oh, somebody said something. Let's see. Oh, Sue said wonderful advice. And then Lourdes said, I came on late, forgot, laugh out loud. That's okay, Lou. You can watch it. I know. You can watch the rerun. It was a great show. If you liked the show last week, you're gonna love this one. That's all I have to say. Uh, Mel was on a roll, unbelievable. Brought some really insightful pieces, and I hope that it will benefit others in a positive way because that's what we want to do. So thanks.
And I just want to say, if anybody, is suffering from addiction and they're not comfortable talking to a professional, you can always reach out to me in my DMs. I get a lot of people that, I've accepted that I'm going to be temporary in most people's lives. And if I can just get you even to rehab, if that's what you need, or get you through one day, I'm cool with that. Just reach out to me at Mel Be Done. Be Done is my
That's
Facebook,
wonderful.
or you can go through Alex and
Well, Mel is a part of Globecom. I just wanted to say that to you guys. She is a part of Globecom and a huge asset to our organization. And so we're very happy to have you here as part of this. And you'll be a constant on guest on the show, uh, probably co-hosting with me soon to be. We're going to bring Erin on hopefully, and then
yes.
we could vote co-host and give if you're comfortable doing that, of course.
Oh, I'm comfortable
Okay,
now.
good,
I wasn't at
good,
first, but
good,
now I'm fine.
good. So, but I just want to say thank you for offering to be there and available if people need to talk to you. And then I know that we talk about boundaries, so if you get overwhelmed with people coming at you, you'll
Oh
be able
yeah,
to, yeah.
yeah.
But
I'm good with my boundaries
oh,
now.
good. I'm
Yes,
happy to
I've
hear it.
learned those. So,
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody else said something. Uh, okay. Bernadette said, great show. Thanks yet again to your guest. Almarchilla is watching. Thank you guys. Great show. God bless. Thank you all. We can't do it without you. So if you want to be a member, please join us. Go to our website, www.globecom.org, and become a patron. We will be bringing lots of show every week to you, every Saturday. So look out for us. If you want to be a guest on the show, contact myself or Mel, and we will have you on here. Any theme, any topic, we are ready. Nothing is off the table. Nothing. So bring it and we will bring it to you. Okay?
yes,
Our community needs something like this, a platform like this to help educate, psychoeducation, help you guys. Therapy is expensive. I know because I'm a therapist.
yes.
You know. So it's very expensive. So this is really good. And what we're going to do next is to the patrons, we're going to start doing some Zoom groups, support groups, and we're going to be doing more of that. So please join today, support us with your help. We can help people globally, and we appreciate your help. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next week. We will let
All
you know
right,
what the topic is, and we will see you then. Any
all
last
right.
words? Any last words?
Just believe in yourself, and go out into the world and shine as bright as you can, and have a great week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.